Good morning, Silver and Black Nation. I'm your host, the Bat Frie, Kenny Fry. Welcome to the Silver and Black Lair. I got that a little jumbled there, but whatever. It's all the same. You get the gist of it. I hope everybody's having a great week so far. It's the end of the week. If you're somebody that's a 5-day weeker, working those banker hours, so it's the start of your weekend. Have fun, be safe, be careful, all that good stuff. Um, let's talk a little bit of Raider football. Last week, final week of the season, Raiders Broncos, the Ponies, the Donkeys, the Bronco Hoes. As some people, I'm not a big fan of that one. I like the Donkeys and the Ponies. Those are my favorite. But yeah, Raiders Broncos season finale in Las Vegas, and the Raiders came out and they dominated. Thank the good Lord for that one. I've said I used to do the Las Vegas sports scene with Rob Hefner, Vegas, the mayor of Las Vegas, and we used to, I used to tell Rob and say, I don't care if the Raiders win 2 games a season as long as those 2 games are against the Donkeys. I don't care. Now that's a little bit of over exaggeration. I want the Raiders to win every damn game, but beat Denver. That's it makes me happy when they beat Denver, when they spank Denver, and Sunday was a spanking, a little bit of a spanking. We have a comment here. Stacy Baker. Happy Friday, Friday! Whoop whoop. That's my dance. Stacy was one of the co-hosts of the Giants, the Big Blue Power Hour, the Giant Show here on the Out of the Box Sports Network. We have a ton of shows here on Out of the Box Sports Network. Unfortunately, Giants, Raiders will be sitting at home watching the playoffs. But hey, right, Stacey? There's always next year, right? You get to say that a lot as a Raiders fan, but for some reason I feel good. I feel good about the way this season ended with the core guys that we have. For the most part, the coaching staff, and I'll talk about that stuff a little bit later about the coaches. Let me go ahead and run through the game from this past Sunday. So, like I said, Raiders came out. They spanked the Donkeys. Beautiful stuff. They beat them 27-14, finishing the season off at 8-9. Then Denver will also finish the season 8-9. And Raiders, I guess, because of tiebreakers and stuff like that, the Raiders finished third, which means that I think their pick now in the draft is 13 and Denver is 12, I believe. So Denver finishes in the basement where they belong, in a musty old basement with spider webs and silverfish and all that good stuff. The stuff that make people nervous. And so the Raiders offensively looked pretty decent. Of course, the offense scoring 20 points, over 20 points again this game. Finally the offense wakes up. It's a shame it's the end of the season, but as long as against Denver, we're good. Aiden O'Connell looked pretty good. Zamir White, I've been clamoring since last year to get Zamir White the ball, at least to spell Josh Jacobs a little bit especially last season, and they weren't doing it. Josh McDaniels just would not do it. It was all Josh Jacobs, and then you'd see like Amir Abdullah, and maybe Zeus would get a carry here or there, but that's about it. And it was going the same way this year. It was all Josh Jacobs, an occasional Amir Abdullah, and then Zeus would get a carry here or there, and you just weren't getting a good look at him. Now, finally, at the last, unfortunately, for Josh Jacobs, the last few games he missed due to an injury, and we got to see Zamir White in action, and I was really impressed. I'm sure lots of other Raider fans were really impressed by Zamir White, and he looked good. He had nice bursts, ran well between the tackles. Some patience there. Occasionally, kind of, rushed it a little bit, some of the holes before they opened up. But I mean, a young running back, in the second season with the Raiders, that's takes time to develop sometimes. Patience is a hard thing to have when you're a youngster. As you get older, a little gray in the beard, patience is second nature. So it was good to see Zamir White come into his own, getting some some carries there at the end of the season, starting a few games, and really showing out. You have 100 yards rushing against the Broncos. The week before, I think it was 70 yards, and the week before that, like 122 yards rushing. So he had himself a hell of a finish to the season. So in this game, Aiden O'Connell finished 20 of 31, 244 yards, 2 touchdown passes, no interceptions, and that was fantastic. He finished the last four games maybe with no interceptions, something like that. Aiden O'Connell, I mean, he's not flashy. He's not going to be go out there and just run around because he's not a runner. And he's not going to light you up, but he got the job done. He didn't turn the ball over the last few games, and started throwing some touchdown passes. And so he looked good. You could see him progressing, and I think with the proper offensive coordinator, offensive coaches, and an off season to work, I feel like he can be a good quarterback. He may never be great, but I think he could be a very good quarterback. So he finishes the season off. The last 4 games. The last 4 games, 8 touchdowns and no interceptions. That's awesome. That's beautiful, especially with the way our defense was playing, the way Zeus was running the ball, and the Raiders were 3-1 in those games, with the only loss coming to Indianapolis. Zeus in this game, Zamir White, 25 carries, 112 yards, ran the ball very hard. Awesome. Unfortunately, no touchdowns. I feel bad for the guy. He ran the ball very well. The end of the season here, filling in for Josh Jacobs, and he only got 1 touchdown out of it. And I think that 1 touchdown was probably like 3 or 4 weeks ago. So it is what it is. They'll come. Devontae Adams, he broke the 100-catch barrier once again this season in the last game here. It's the 4th straight season he's done so. That ties Stephon Diggs for that amount, 100-catch seasons in a row. And they're both chasing Antonio Brown, who had 6 with the Steelers. 6 straight 100-yard catch seasons with the Steelers. And it kind of shows you how great Antonio Brown was before he became an absolute lunatic. And I know some people have pointed to the hit he took from Vontaze Burfict. That knocked him. I knocked him into a different dimension. He was out cold. It was a dirty hit. It was, but people pointed out that after that hit, he was never the same guy emotionally. Physically and in the field, the same guy. Making catches, making plays, game breaker, but emotionally, just not the same guy. Acting out, doing uncharacteristic things. I don't know about all that because I don't know. Obviously, I don't know him personally, and we run in different groups. Antonio Brown and I. He doesn't run with the Fry clan. He has a different posse. My posse is a 5-year-old and a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old and my wife and the dogs. Don't forget the dog and the cats and the bird. We'll throw the bird in there too. That's the Fry posse right there. Come hang with us. We'll show you a good time. Yeah. So the Raiders had a nice lead at halftime, 17-7. Everything's looking good. Come out to a scoreless third quarter. I guess the game was kind of lunking along a little bit at that point. You get into the fourth quarter, they score again. And they build a 24. I had a brain for. I had an Antonio Brown moment, I think, there. I don't know. A 24-7 lead early in the fourth quarter with Jacoby Myers' 33-yard touchdown catch. And he had a fantastic season as well. Jacoby Myers, I was kind of skeptical on him. I know he was one of the, I don't want to say highly sought after or coveted wide receivers this past offseason in the free agency. But he was one of the bigger names as a wide receiver in free agency last year. And I was really surprised that he came to Las Vegas. I mean, part of it could be because of Josh McDaniels. I'm sure that's probably a large part of it, but also Jimmy G, a good familiarity. It's a hard word to say. with a bunch of those players that were former Patriots, because we were Patriots West. I guess we still kind of are. But yeah, him coming to Las Vegas, very, very good season for Jacoby Myers. I'll go over the season stats in a little bit. Denver then scored, made it 24-14. Got within 10 points. And with a little over 2 minutes ago, Daniel Carlson put the game away with a 21-yard field goal to finish the game off at 27-14. So the offense had a really good day, and Denver, just like Las Vegas, wasn't playing for anything. Denver was playing for a winning season, so that was something a little bit more enticing than what the Raiders had to play for. But the Raiders, to the outsiders, the Raiders were playing for much more. The Raiders were playing for their coach, their interim coach, Antonio Pierce, wanting him. It seems to be almost a consensus. I haven't heard anybody come out and say that they don't want AP or a report, an anonymous Raider doesn't want AP as the coach. Everything you see is that everybody loves him. Everybody's playing for him. So they're playing for more than just wins. They're playing for their interim coach, want him to get the permanent job. And so the defense played fantastic. 11 quarterback hits. They were all over the Denver quarterback. And 5 sacks. Awesome. Isaiah Palomal, Max, Malcolm Kuntz, Adam Butler, who's had a terrific season from up the middle, and also Tyree Wilson, who played better, for the most part, second half of the season. He's been, pretty much down most of the season. The second half played better in some games. Some games he kind of disappeared, but there were, some games he played, pretty well. So, not first round pick, not good enough for a first round pick, but he played well. Trayvon Merrick also had an interception, and they held Denver to under 300 yards total offense. So the Raiders defense finishing the season with a top 10 defense is something I never thought I'd be able to say. And another thing I thought I'd never be able to say is they also had 0 penalties in this game. It's the second time this season that the Raiders had 0 penalties. That doesn't happen often. I think the last time it happened, I read, was 2013 New England Patriots. And before that was 1960. So it's something that doesn't happen often. And it's something that never happened to the Raiders. The Raiders usually are the most penalized team in the league. This year, they were the least penalized team in the league. That's absolutely amazing. An amazing stat. Shows say what you want about Josh McDaniels. It showed the kind of discipline that he brought into the organization. So you got to give him kudos there. But they also carried it on when AP took over. They could easily, just went into business for themselves and, went back to doing Raider type things. There were occasions where they'd have a big play or a big stop and it'd come up, there'd be a penalty. But, the one that takes me back is the Indianapolis one with the Jack Jones call offsides. Before that was a Jack Jones pass interference call. And, so a couple of penalties that hurt the Raiders there ended up, leading to us losing the game. Even though that offsides, Jack Jones was not offsides. If you watch that replay or that clip that he posted out there on X, it shows when the ball's being snapped is when he's taking off. It's just perfect timing is what it is. He got off the ball so well. As soon as that long snapper starts moving that ball, he's up and he's moving, he's digging. So, and it's hilarious to watch. The dude's not offsides, but as soon as it starts going, I mean, he's going and everybody else is still in their stance. It's amazing. I've never seen that kind of jump before. And I'm sure if you go back, you can find jumps like that, but it's absolutely amazing to see him get off the ball the way he did. And for them to call that penalty is just, heartbreaking in a way, but it is what it is. I mean, it's as a Raider, you're used to having calls go against you, and you're used to having penalties go against you. So kudos to the team there with the whole penalty thing. Being able to turn that around, becoming a disciplined team, and leading the league with fewest penalties. So I assume fewest penalties, but then also fewest penalty yards, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So what else do we got from that game? Let me look over my notes here. So the Raiders had the 17-7 lead at half. Jacoby Myers, 5-yard touchdown run. Devontae Adams, 3-yard touchdown catch. and a 40-yard field goal by Daniel Carlson, who had another pretty good season. So that's the Raiders season finale there. Again, great game. Love it when they spank the Donkeys. Somewhere John Elway's horse face is crying. I can't stand the Broncos. And I hate. So here's a quick story. A few years ago, I got lectured about saying I hate Tim Tebow, and I don't physically hate the guy. For the love of God, the guy's having hospitals and schools built for children in Africa. How can you hate a guy like that? Really, honestly, don't really hate him. But as a Bronco, I hate the guy. And every Bronco, every person that puts on that Bronco uniform, I hate. I can't stand Lyle Alzado. An all-time great Raider. When you think of Lyle Alzado, you think of the Raiders. Of him playing for the Raiders, but he was a Bronco. So I mean, I don't hate Lyle Alzado. He was a Raider then. So, but it just, I don't know. It's just everybody that's a sports fan has that one team in any sport that they just cannot stand. They want to see lose every single game. They want to see nothing but hardships for that team. And for me, that team in football is the Denver Broncos. I want nothing but hardships for them. I want a rainy cloud to hang over Mile High Stadium, and every time they say, the crowd goes, they do a little incomplete chant. They go incomplete. I want to see a lightning bolt come down and just zap them all. And every time they go to do that, it's just, I don't know. Stacy says this is how she feels about the Cowgirls. See, you understand. You understand, and especially in this area, there's a lot of Eagles fans feel that way about the Cowgirls, and vice versa. And the Giants, a lot of the fans, a lot of hate for the Cowgirls. There is a lot of hate to go around for the Cowgirls for some reason. Now for you guys, it's interdivisional. I understand, but even teams that don't play the Cowboys all that often hate the Cowboys. So, but it's just there's nothing. It's cringe. I think of Denver, the Broncos. Can't. It moves the bile in my stomach. I don't know. Hate them. So looking at season stats here, moving on from my Denver throw-up hate. So looking at the season stats here, passing-wise, Aiden O'Connell finished with a pretty decent season. He started 11 games, started 10 games. Or no, it wasn't 10. No, it was 10 games. I think he started 10 games, 213 completions, 343, 13 completions out of 343 attempts, 62.1% completion percentage with 2,218 yards, finished with 12 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. And, when he was at 8-7, 8 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, like, man, this guy, he's thrown as many interceptions as Jimmy G. Like at that point in the season, you compared their stats, for games played and stuff like that. They were absolutely equal, but he turned it around really well. He started protecting the ball, making smarter throws. He was still getting hit a lot, but from holding onto the ball a little bit longer than he should have. But he made a lot of nice throws. He missed a lot of throws as well, but I think that's something that he can work on. Stacy says because they think they are America's team. That's Dallas. They do think that. That's because that's what they were branded, I guess, back in the 70s, and they kind of drugged that moniker along with them, and it's a little bit delusional, like you say. It's a little bit delusional. So Jimmy G for the season, 110 completions out of 169 attempts, 65.1% completion percentage, 1,205 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions with a quarterback rating of 77.7. So I'm not sure what we're going to do about Jimmy G. I'll talk about that in a little bit here, but it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be something to watch this offseason. Rushing wise, Zamir White finished with 104 carries, 451 yards rushing with a 4.3 yard per carry average and 1 touchdown. Josh Jacobs, who had a tough season this year, 233 carries, 805 yards rushing, 3.5 yards per carry, and 6 touchdowns. If you throw in his receiving yards there, he ended up finishing with over 1,000 scrimmage yards. So another productive season for Josh Jacobs, but not as good as he had hoped for or Raider Nation had hoped for either. Looking at the receivers for the season, Devontae Adams, 103 catches, 1,144 yards, 8 touchdowns. Jacoby Myers, 71 catches, 807 yards receiving, 8 touchdowns. He did miss the one game due to concussion. I think it's like the second or third game of the season. Trey Tucker started getting involved a little bit more when AP took over. 19 catches, 330 yards, 331 yards receiving with 2 touchdowns. He also ran the ball a little bit. Very explosive player. Hopefully we use him a lot more next season. And Michael Mayer, rookie tight end, another guy that when AP took over started seeing the ball thrown his way a little bit more. He finished the season with 27 catches, 304 yards receiving, and 2 touchdowns. Dad sneezed there. I'm sorry. I tried to point my face away from the microphone here and sneeze. That's a dad sneeze, so it's going to be loud and obnoxious. I have to do it every time because I am a dad, and it's my right. I think you got the old Donald Duck mug here, rocking it out. All right. So looking at the defense for the season, let's let some of the top guys. Robert Spillane, who was absolutely fantastic. He was an off-season acquisition from the Steelers, and he was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. Hopefully the Raiders shore him up for a little bit longer term. The dude just had a motor a lot like Max Crosby. They're almost one and the same kind of guy. I really liked the way they played together. Robert Spillane finished with 148 tackles. His intensity is awesome, too. I just love his intensity. He lives for football. 148 tackles, 82 of those were solo tackles, 3.5 sacks, and 3 interceptions. The 3.5 sacks and 3 interceptions came, the first half of the season, so he kind of fell off there. In the last, 2 games or so, he wasn't getting as many tackles as he was earlier in the season, for most of the season. So the production and the tackles kind of fell off a little bit there. But still, terrific season for Robert Spillane. Awesome, great job. So hopefully he's I'm not sure what his contract is, if it's a 1 or 2 year deal, but hopefully they shore him up for a couple more years. Divine Diablo, I thought he had a really good season. He ended up finishing with over 100 tackles, 106. 65 of those were solo and 1 sack. I'm really happy with him. He's been with the Raiders for a couple seasons now. Not only does he have a great name, but he's becoming a really good defensive piece for the Raiders. Max Crosby, our best player, if you ask me. 90 tackles, 55 of those were solo, and 14.5 sacks. I fell off sack-wise and tackle-wise near the end of the season. Just really, really banged up, and you're not going to take that man off the field. But you can see his production kind of fall off a little bit. He was still getting a lot of pressures and a lot of hits on the quarterback, but he was just a step later than he usually is, and I think that has a lot to do with that knee injury. So I'd expect him to come back next season better than ever. Nate Hobbs had a really good season this year, I thought, at cornerback. 86 tackles, 59 of those were solo, 1 sack, 1 interception. So many big plays, so many nice tackles. Really did a hell of a job this year. Trayvon Merrick, who had an interception against the Donkeys there. 83 tackles, 65 solo, 2 sacks, and 3 interceptions. And so he was tied for the team lead in interceptions with Robert Spillane. Great season for Trayvon Merrick, who's been with the Raiders for a few years now as well. Amik Robertson, who's going to be a free agent this year. So hopefully we can figure something out there because he just seems to make big plays. He had a sack and also 2 interceptions. Jack Jones, who the Raiders picked up a couple games ago. I guess he played maybe 6 or 7 games with the Raiders. And he has a great relationship with AP. So if Antonio Pierce is hired as the Raiders' next coach, I do believe Jack Jones will be back. He's coached him in high school, he's coached him in college, now he's coached him in the NFL. So I'd expect Jack Jones to be back if AP's hired as the coach. But he finished with two interceptions, and both of those were pick sixes. So good stuff there. Malcolm Kuntz, who was a pleasant surprise this year as our other rusher. With the fall of Chandler Jones, which I've talked about a couple times in the show, we weren't sure where our other pressures would be coming from on the other side of the defensive line. We did a lot of movement with Max. A lot of he moved around the line a lot. He's outside and the other side. In the middle sometimes. So they moved Max around a lot. But Malcolm Kuntz really came alive. Had a hell of a season and finished with 8 sacks. Tyree Wilson, first round draft pick. Like I said, up and down this season. He finished with 3.5 sacks. I'd expect a lot more production out of him next year. Again, rookie. Kind of give him a pass a little bit. At least I do. But that really, really high pick, first rounder. You want those guys to produce at a high level right away. You didn't get it from him this year, but he did get better as the season went on. And Adam Butler, I thought was fantastic this year, coming up out of the defensive tackle position. A lot of great pressures up the middle between him, Jerry Tillery, and Bilal Nichols. But Adam Butler, he finished with 5 sacks this year. So great job by Adam Butler. That whole defense was just awesome. A top 10 defense. Last I heard, I thought they finished in total defense 6th overall. But I couldn't find it on the interwebs anywhere. I think I heard it on a podcast I was listening to. So it could be made up. I don't know. What the hell do I know? Here we go. Whenever I talk, this pisses me off so much. Whenever I do these, I get all stuffy. As soon as I start talking, my nose gets stuffy. I sound like I don't know. He's sniffing all the time. It pissing me off. Anyway, moving on here. So with the Raiders, season, not going the way we wanted it to. Firing Josh McDaniels halfway through the season, and surprisingly, putting the interim tag on Antonio Pierce. No, I don't think too many people have seen that coming. He's just a linebackers coach brought in this season. So it was kind of a surprise, but you kind of see the correlation. He was a lifetime Raider fan, grew up in Compton, blah, blah, blah. The whole connections there. Great story. And he's a super intense guy. I think he was an undrafted free agent with the Giants. I think he was undrafted. I'm pretty sure he was undrafted. So you're not really expecting anything out of that guy, and he just became the leader on that defense. Won I think 2 Super Bowls with the Giants. I think he was on both Super Bowl teams. Terrific career for Antonio Pierce, and he kind of turned that into a decent coaching career so far. He started off at the high school level, worked his way up. There was no, I played linebacker in the pros, so I'm going to start off as a coach in the pros. And he didn't do that. He didn't skip any steps. He went right to the beginning, high school, and then went to the college ranks. Coached there at Arizona State with I think under Herm Edwards. I think that's when Herm Edwards was the head coach. I could be wrong. And after that, started mingling around in the professional ranks. And then Patrick Graham brought him in as a linebackers coach this past season, and I wouldn't have been surprised if Patrick Graham was the interim coach, but and Antonio Pierce, I thought it was a very good decision. It worked out really well. The team kind of rallied around him. Still had some really questionable calls and stuff like that with timeouts or decisions and challenging some plays, or a couple 4th and 1s. It's hard. It's hard. It's not easy to figure out when you should go and when you should kick the field goal or when you should punt. I know analytics, this, that, and the other, but when you're in a game like that, you let your emotion take over, and sometimes it can lead you into a nice spot. Sometimes it can lead you astray. So, there was times where it was good, and there was times where it was bad. So he ended up finishing the season at 5-4 as the Raiders interim head coach. Not too shabby. Now it doesn't scream, Hall of Famer or anything like that, going 5-4. but there was a whole lot. As a rookie quarterback, a running back that was struggling, offensive line that was struggling, run blocking. It was a whole lot of stuff going on there, and he managed it well. I thought he managed it very good. The players loved him; they rallied around him, and you can talk about that all day. So it was a great job by him, and uh, uh, Bo Hardigree. Not there was times Bo Hardigree, the interim offensive coordinator, looked really good. Like, oh, that's innovative. That's cool. And then there was times there's just like, oh my God, this guy cannot do this job. He cannot be an offensive coordinator. He should go back to being, I think, the quarterbacks coach or whatever he was before that. And so I wouldn't expect Bo Hardigree back as an offensive coordinator at all. And if Antonio Pierce is named the head coach, gets that interim tag dropped, I would expect a seasoned offensive coordinator to be named. So somebody that's well known, respected. I'm assuming I thought I've heard that he already has a list put together as to who he wants or who he's going to bring in. So we'll see. And that could be part of the hiring process for Mark Davis. Who are you bringing in? If you're the coach, who are you bringing in to help you on the offensive side? And I think that could be a huge part of his hiring if he's going to get hired. So we'll see what happens there. But other head coaching names that have been thrown out there for the Raiders, Jim Harbaugh. That's one that I'm kind of on the fence about. I like Jim Harbaugh. I think he's a great coach. Just won a national championship the other day at Michigan. When he was in San Francisco, that team was just floundering for seasons. Turned them around pretty quick. And it was like 4, 5, 6 seasons or so. And then you could see it kind of turning on him. Players just kind of over the super weird, super intense, rah kind of, Jim Harbaugh. Maybe not so much rah, but just weird and intense. It's kind of goofy Jim Harbaugh. They're kind of over it. And you can see the team or locker room kind of turning on him a little bit. And that's when he decided to go to Michigan. I don't remember if he was bought out or if he was fired. I'm not 100% sure by San Francisco. But he made them into a winning team. One of the best teams in the league. Took them to the Super Bowl. He ended up losing to the Baltimore Ravens, his brother. And so like I said, Michigan, there's a team that was floundering for years, could never beat Ohio State. And even when he took over, it took quite a few years before he actually got over the hump and beat Ohio State. And now he's beaten Ohio State a couple years in a row and taken them to their national championship, won the national championship. And, things are on the up and up for Jim Harbaugh right now. It's good to be Jim right now. So his name's been thrown out there a lot. You have the John Gruden name constantly being thrown out. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think there's a chance that could happen. Right now, he's in court in Nevada, suing the NFL over the leaked emails and stuff like that. So yeah, he has his own shit going on. Patrick Graham, our defensive coordinator, that name's been thrown out there. He wants to be a head coach. I do believe he deserves a shot at it somewhere. If it's not with the Raiders, somewhere, I see him being a head coach. And, for the Raiders to have a top 10 defense, that should be enough. Just take that in, let me see your resume, and that should be in big, bold letters, what they've done this season. And, put that on the desk and expect a dollar amount to come back. So he's somebody up there that I wouldn't mind being named head coach. Mike Vrabel, who's just recently fired by the Tennessee Titans, who I thought was going to be a shoo-in at the Patriots job. As we found out today, that is not a fact. The Patriots signed Gerard Mayo as their new head coach, taking over for Bill Belichick. I guess they did not have to satisfy the Rooney Rule because they had a plan of succession, or something like that. I think it was a plan. I think it was called a plan of succession, where when Bill retires, this guy is going to be taking over. It was a contract written out, so they didn't have to satisfy the Rooney Rule. So there's that. So Gerard Mayo is your new New England Patriots head coach, a defensive guy. So that's interesting to me because a whole bunch of defensive type coaches were fired this year. So including Belichick, amicably left or split, whatever you want to call it. Mike Vrabel, a defensive guy, a bunch of other ones as well. The Chargers head coach, whose name escapes me, I believe he was a defensive type guy. Yeah, he was a defensive guy. He was fired halfway through the season. Trying to think who else there was. Pete Carroll, I think he's better known as a defensive type coach. He's whatever he is. I don't know if he's fired, let go. He's in a advisory role, whatever the hell that means. I think that's just a role you give to somebody that's kind of older, that's still kind of hanging on. So I don't know. But anyway, so Mike Vrabel, I haven't heard his name at all for the Raiders, but that's somebody who I thought did a hell of a job with Tennessee for all these years, and I would not mind him coming to the Raiders there. Ron Rivera, I would not want to see him with the Raiders at all. I did hear his name pop up once, or I seen it on the X pop up once. It could have been just a joke post or tweet, whatever the hell you want to call it now. Could have been just a joke, but made me very nervous. And then Bill Belichick, and I'd say no, I think Bill Belichick should retire. Just like Pete Carroll, I don't think there's any reason those guys should coach anymore. They're both, late 70s, early 80s, somewhere around there. There's no reason they should be coaching. They should be just sipping on Mai Tais or whatever the hell, older folk do. I don't know. I'm getting there, but I'm not quite there yet. So those are a list of people, the names I've been hearing. And of course, Antonio Pierce. That's who I want. I want Antonio Pierce back, just to see, give him a few years, give him a 3-year contract, and see what happens. What do you think? What we're gonna have a losing season? Well, we've been having losing seasons for 20 years. So what's another one, right? And it sucks, but let's see what he can do with an off season, a proper offensive coordinator. And let's see what happens there. As for the Raiders interim GM, I do think they should stick with him. His name escapes me right now as I sniffle. Oh yeah. I think they should stick with him because it's somebody that's from I've heard on other podcasts. He's a highly sought after kind of guy for a GM role. So his name is Champ Kelly because I looked it up on my phone. I couldn't remember what the hell it was. I don't know why I cannot remember that guy's name. It's such an easy name to Champ Kelly. What the hell? It sounds like a football player name. He's not a player, but you know what I mean. Sounds like a football type name, Champ Kelly. I always think of Champ Bailey, and then I think of the Broncos, and I get mad, and that's why I start forgetting stuff. So I do think they should re-sign Champ Kelly as your general manager, and then I think he should hire Antonio Pierce as the head coach. But we'll see what happens. We'll see where they go, and I'm a Raider fan for life. So no matter which way they go, I'm there for it. Next week, I'll talk free agents. I'll talk Josh Jacobs. I'll talk Jimmy G, Devontae Adams. Guys, Jimmy G and Devontae Adams aren't free agents, but will they stick around? I don't know. But I'll also talk about the free agents that are coming up on the Raiders roster. Earlier this week, the Raiders signed 15 players to their future/reserved list contracts. A couple notable names for me, anyway. Out of those 15, DJ Fluker, offensive tackle. I for some reason I feel like he was like a first-round pick years ago, but out of Alabama or something, or maybe not Alabama, maybe like somewhere in I think SEC. or maybe maybe he came out of Florida State. I don't remember, but I do feel like he was a first round draft pick. So they signed him to a reserve / future contract. Cole Fotheringham, who got into a couple games this year, they signed him to a future / reserve contract. I like Cole Fotheringham. He got it, like I said, he got into a couple games this season. I think he had a touchdown catch against the Chiefs this year. I think it was a touchdown. I can't remember 100%. And Austin Hooper, did okay this year, but I don't know if he's the long-term backup or not. The long-term tight end too. It'd be nice to see Fotheringham maybe get a shot at that in the offseason, going into the training camps and stuff like that. Sincere McCormick, running back that the Raiders picked up a couple years ago. I think there's one of their like a 6th or 7th round draft pick maybe. I heard a lot of great things about him before the season started. Didn't see him in any games this year though, so I think I don't know if they released him and then brought him back or what it was, or he was just on the practice squad. But with Josh Jacobs does leave, that could be something. You have Sincere McCormick, move him up and go from there. Josh Jacobs did say that if Antonio Pierce is back, he's 100% in. But money talks. So and also Nesta Jade Silvera, who's the Raiders' last pick this past season in the draft. He was released back in I think October, November, and they signed him to the practice squad. I like Nesta Jade Silvera. I seen him play in a couple games, and I thought he looked good. But it's stacked against him being a 7th round draft pick. The odds are against him, so we'll see what happens with that. One last bit of Raider news here. Max Crosby and AJ Cole, punter AJ Cole, were both named to the Pro Bowl. Whatever the Pro Bowl is, it's a flag football game now, but they also have a bunch of pretty cool like obstacle courses and stuff like that to do. So got a comment here. We got Cowboy Dave checking in. Say, what's going on, big man? What's going on, Cowboy Dave? How are you? The showstopper. You can check Dave out on a host of shows here. He's everywhere. He is Mr. Out of the Box. Dave's on the Dem 215 boys talking Dallas Cowboy football, getting ready for the playoffs this weekend. He's on the Atomic Drop podcast with myself. We should be on live this Saturday, 11 p.m., talking WWE wrestling. And he also, when it's baseball season, he'll be doing a baseball show with Joe Sullivan, the Extra Innings podcast. So yeah, so Dave makes his rounds. He absolutely makes his rounds. And Max Crosby and AJ Cole were also named to the NFLPA All-Pro team. It's the second year for that, where all the active players vote on. They're all pros, so it's the second season they're doing that. So that's pretty cool for Max and AJ Cole. Max was also awarded the Commitment to Excellence Award, which is 2 in a row, 2 or 3 in a row for him. That's something an award the Raiders give out, and the Raiders also awarded Jermaine Ulemanor, offensive tackle. I don't know if it's a Raider. I think it's actually a media award, Las Vegas Media. I can't remember what the name of the award is, but it's basically an award for being professional and stuff like that with the media and around the media and stuff. So that's pretty cool for Jermaine Ulemanor, who I thought had a really good season this year. It's not perfect. He wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought he was very good this season. And that's something that I'll be talking about next week when I talk free agents. All right. So that's all I have for the Raiders. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the LA Kings now. The frustrating LA Kings are just falling off a cliff right now. Falling off a cliff, and it is ugly. All right. So going through a 7-game losing streak here, the LA Kings, and it's such an uber talented team. So much talent, from top to bottom. I mean, of course, they have a couple holes. Every team has a couple holes, and they just cannot get out of their own way right now. It is bad. And it's not bad. I'm not saying that it is bad that they're playing bad. It's just bad that the way that they're losing these games. It's very, very frustrating, and the offense is kind of really hit a lull or is struggling really struggling. They're getting all the shots off. They're getting a ton of shots off, and they're just not putting it in the net now. So throughout the 7-game losing streak, they lost to the Golden Knights 3-2. The Oilers 3-2. In overtime, they had a 2-0. It's a recurring theme here, a 2-0 lead. In that game, they lost to the Leafs, who absolutely dominated. The Leafs dominated the Kings. The Kings played them earlier in the season, and the Kings, spanked their asses 5-1. I mean, the Kings really spanked their asses. Well, the Leafs returned the favor. I watched that game. It was awful. That game was awful. The Leafs dominated that game 3-0, and I don't even think it was that close. If I remember correctly, I think the first period might have been 1-0 or 0-0, but after that it was all Leafs. But I could be wrong on that. I feel like Cam Talbot, I think, was in net that game and was just, he played well, but it's just the Leafs were just wave after wave. Then they lost to Detroit, which was surprising to me. They lost to Detroit 4-3 in overtime again. And they in that game again, a 2-0 lead. It's just, they cannot protect the lead at all. Then they lose to the Capitals on this current road trip here. They lost to them 4-3. They're up 2-1 and 3-2. They're up 3-2 late. They're up. It was. I don't remember how much time was left, but I feel like it was late. It was in the third period. They were up 3-2. Then it was 3-3. And it looked like it was going to overtime, but then with 53 seconds left, a turnover in our zone and bingo bango, Caps score. So that was incredibly frustrating. Then Tampa Bay, a very good Tampa Bay team, lost to them 3-2 in overtime. Again, that game had a 2-0 lead. It looked like we were in control, playing well. Couldn't put them away. Offensively, just cannot put any teams away. Then we played Florida last night. I thought the Kings looked very good, moving the puck well. But 3-2 loss, and it was in overtime. We had a 2-1 lead with 3 minutes to go in the game. We had a 2-1 lead with 3 minutes to go in the game, and we lose this game 3-2. And the way we lost in overtime, 0.7 seconds left in overtime. 0.7 seconds left. We lose that game in overtime. That close to going to a shootout. And thankfully, we get the at least 1 point for the overtime losses. But still, I mean, there's teams hot on our heels right now, and it is, it's getting tight. It is getting tight. Had a nice cushion there in the 3 spot in the Pacific Division, and that window is closed. I mean, it's bad. So looking back from this past week. To the 4-3 loss to the Capitals. Our goals came from Adrian Kempe. He had a power play goal that made the game 1-1. It was assisted by Drew Doughty and Andrzej Kopitar. Then Kevin Fiala scored, made the game 2-1 with an assist from Philip Denault and Mikey Anderson. Then Kevin Fiala had another goal, a power play goal, make it 3-2, assisted by Quentin Byfield. And then we lose the game with 53 seconds left. So, great night by Kevin Fiala, who has who I think he's struggling against the I think it was the Red Wings, and he got benched, but then he came back out and he played well. He's played really well recently. Very good. So maybe a little bit of a wake up call for him. Then we lose to Tampa Bay 3-2 in overtime. Our goals came from Philip Denault. Made it 1-0. Assisted by Jordan Spence and Trevor Moore. Then Matt Roy scored, make it 2-0. Assisted by Kevin Fiala and Trevor Moore again. Trevor Moore's kind of, cooling off a little bit in the goal department. He was on fire for the Kings, but kind of cooling off a little bit. Like I said, we lost that one in overtime. And then last night, losing in overtime with 0.7 seconds left, which still just, awful. A shitty way to lose. I've never seen that before. I was watching it. I'm like, okay, that's going to a shootout. And no, I was listening to the radio on the way to work, and I'm like, oh, that's going to go to a shootout, and it's unbelievable. 0.7 seconds. I didn't see that coming. So goals for us: Trevor Moore, he made it 1-0, assisted by Philip Denault and Kevin Fiala. Then Drew Doughty, an awesome power play goal right off the face off. I believe it was right off the face off. Set up. It's nice to see some points, some goals scored from our defense. That made it 2-1, and that was assisted by Adrian Kempe, Juice, and our captain Anže Kopitar. I mean, I don't know what to say. Our defense is still playing decent offensively. Just there's games where we come out hot. Going up on teams early, and in the beginning of the season that was good enough. We go up. We'd score first and we'd win those games, and we'd win those games going away. Like a 5-2, 5-3. Putting up a decent amount of goals. Now we get those 2 goals, and that's all we can get in the game. So I don't know if the Kings are just tiring out. I don't know. That doesn't seem to make sense. But it just seems like they, as the longer the game goes, the worse they get. And I just cannot put my finger on it. It's a veteran heavy team. I mean, there's a couple of youngsters on there. Quentin Byfield's in his second season. Alex Laferriere, he's a rookie, and guys like that. But for the most part, these are all experienced players. Guys have been around for a good bit. Anže Kopitar, he's been around since the Stanley Cup days. Drew Doughty also around since the Stanley Cup days. But Adrian Kempe, he's been around for a few years. He's not a rookie by any stretch. Kevin Fiala was brought in last season, I believe it was, or 2 seasons ago. I think it was the 2020 season. Or I think it was 2020. He was brought in, or 21, whatever. It doesn't matter. But he's been in the league before that, so he's not a rookie by any stretch of imagination. Trevor Moore, he's kind of newish. Not a rookie, but still fairly young. We're not getting a lot of help from P.L. Dubois, our big offseason acquisition, but he is getting better, I feel like. They did demote him down to the fourth line last night, so that's not very promising there. But you give Todd McClellan some credit. He's trying different things, different strategies. He's mixing up lines. The other day, a couple games ago, against who was it? Was it Detroit? I think it was against Detroit, where he mixed up the lines, and he had Kempe down on the second line with P.L. Dubois and I think Laferriere maybe, and it was awesome. I think they had a 3 or 4 points that game as a line combined. Played very well, played fast, played loose. They had Trevor Moore on the first line, but they broke that up a little bit and moved some more pieces around. Just trying to find the right combination to kind of spark this team. They did bring up a young defenseman, Brant Clark, who's been in down with the Ontario Reign for a few years now. I think for 2 years or so, 2-3 years, whatever it's been. And so they called him up. So I'd like to see him get in a little bit. And I don't know. Look, trade wise, maybe they don't have a whole lot of cap space, so you're kind of limited in what you do. But we're also missing one of our cogs, Victor Arvidsson. He's due back sometime in February, and from a lot of the stuff that I listen to, they're saying that when he comes back, he will be that right-handed shot that we've been sorely missing in our power play. So we'll see what happens there. Is Victor Arvidsson? Is he going to be that spark? I know last season he had a really good season, and just this year he's been hurt. He's been on the injured reserve list for. I don't know if he played in any games I don't know if he played the first game or not, or second game, but he's been for the bulk of the season so far, he's been on the injured list. So they're hoping he's due back. February, probably after the All-Star break. It sounds like, but they need something. They need something. Whether they bring up a Foggy-Mo, who's a youngster down in Ontario, up and down over in Ontario somewhere, wherever the hell Ontario is in Canada. I can't pick it out on the map. I know where Canada's at. Ontario, I couldn't tell you. It's asshole from its head. So we'll see. Well, different stuff they could try. And there's also been talks on the one podcast I listened to, Locked On Kings. They did bring up that they're hearing mutterings of maybe firing Todd McClellan. I mean, for a team as talented as the Kings are, for where they were just a few weeks ago, a big cushion over the Oilers. I knew that wasn't going to last. I did talk about that. I mentioned how far down the Oilers were, but they're so talented. After they fired their coach, it just they turned it on. They turned on the Jets. They still have a lot of holes in that team. After watching the Kings play them, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. Yeah, they still do have a bunch of holes, but that team is just so good, so talented that it's going to be hard to keep them down. And so a coaching change could be in the works if they continue losing. We're on a road trip right now. We're 6 games in 10 days, and so far 0 for 3. That ain't good at all, especially the way we started off the season on the road. Well, I guess not if you look at it, not 0 for 3, but 0-1-2. So, but anyway, the way we started off this season on the road, it's this should have been our get right, road trip. Get right, kind of figure things out because we started off on fire on the road, but we just can't do anything right now. Cam Talbot's been playing, pretty good in between the pipes there, but it's just not good enough. And also, in speaking of injury news, I was talking about Victor Arvidsson. Phoenix Copley has been put on injured reserve. He's done for the season. Something with his knee. I think they said he tore the total ACL reconstruction, which is what I had done to my knee. And look at where I'm at now. Hey, that's like I think they said 6 to 9 month recovery period, 6 to 8 month recovery period. So it's going to be a while before you see Phoenix Copley again. And I believe he's a free agent after the season. So it's probably the last time you'll see Phoenix Copley in an LA Kings uniform, which is unfortunate. I like Phoenix Copley. Kind of saved our season last year with all of our goalie troubles we had. But he stepped up and he played very well until we brought in Jonas Korpisalo. And then Korpisalo and then Phoenix kind of traded off games. They both played well down the stretch. So that's a bit of a bummer. And so with that happening with the Phoenix Copley injury, we called up David Rittich, who has a good amount of NHL experience with Calgary, Toronto, Nashville, and Winnipeg. Winnipeg last year. He's never been the number one goalie, but he's gotten plenty of playing time and had some decent seasons, some okay seasons in the past. So let's hopefully he's able to right this. I don't want to say. I'm sorry, I'm burping here. I don't want to say right the ship because he's only gotten 3 starts, but hopefully he does well as our backup goalie because Cam Talbot is up there in age. He's a little bit long in a tooth, as they say, and he's gonna need some breaks, especially going down the stretch. And if we're in a tight race, he's gonna need some breaks. He's gonna need some breathers, and we're gonna need Rittich to step up and play well. So looking ahead to what the Kings have next week, starting Saturday at Detroit, who we just recently lost to in overtime. Running theme there. Real quick, got ahead of myself. During this 7-game losing streak, the Kings are 0-3-4. So like I said, they are still getting points with those overtime losses, but they're still losses. We want the 2 points, not the 1-pointers. So 0-3-4 over the last during this 7-game losing streak. So we're at Detroit. Detroit right now is sitting at 20-16-5 with 45 points. Monday at Carolina. Like I said, I said this 2 weeks ago, our January is going to be rough, and it's it's getting worse by the day with this losing streak. So Monday at Carolina, they're 23-13-5 with 51 points. Tuesday at Dallas, 24-11-5, 53 points. And then Thursday versus Nashville back home versus Nashville, 22-18-1, sitting at 45 points. So looking at the standings in the Pacific Division, so if you're talking playoffs, the top 3 teams from each division make it. Then you have 2 wildcard teams. So right now, the Kings are sitting in a playoff spot as a 3rd team for the Pacific Division, but it's getting tight. So looking at the Pacific Division, Vancouver, which is a total shock to me, they're sitting at 28-11-3, 59 points. Then the Vegas Golden Knights, who for most of the season was in first place, and then Vancouver just blew right by them. They're 24-13-5 with 53 points. Then the LA Kings are sitting in 3rd at 20-10-8 at 48 points. They also have 4 games in hand against the Vancouver Canucks and the Vegas Golden Knights, meaning that the Vegas Golden Knights and the Canucks have each played 42 games already, where the Kings are at 38, as well as the Edmonton Oilers are also at 38. They're sitting in 4th place right now, 22-15-1 and 45 points. So they were double-digit points back just a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. They're 3 points back now. Seattle Kraken, another team that was pretty far back. They're playing much better. They're sitting at 18-14-9, 45 points. And the Calgary Flames sitting at 19-18-5, 43 points. Looking at the Western Division, Western Conference overall, the Winnipeg Jets, they're the overall team in the West, sitting at 28-9-4, 60 points. And you have Vancouver at 59 points. Colorado is sitting in the 3rd spot in the West, 27-12-3, 57 points. Dallas sitting in the 4th spot in the West, 24-11-5 with 53 points. And you have the Golden Knights sitting at the 5 spot, 53. The Kings sitting in the 6th spot with 48 points. And right now there's a 3-way tie for the 7th spot. So you have Edmonton, Nashville, and Seattle all with 45 points. It's tight. It's not where you want to be. Not where I thought we were going to be just a few weeks ago. We were rolling. We were, with top 5 team in the league, and right now it's awful. It's really bad, and it's mostly offensive issues. Turnovers in the neutral zone, turnovers on our side of the ice. It's been ugly. Penalty power play, not doing very good. Penalty kill still doing pretty decent. So looking at stats so far this season, you have Anze Kopitar, 14 goals, 23 assists, 37 points, tied for the lead on the team in points. And he's tied with Adrian Kempe, who's at 15 goals, 22 assists, 37 points. And Adrian Kempe is leading the team in the plus-minus category with a plus 16. If you don't know, plus-minus is when you're on the ice and your team scores, you get a plus. And if you're on the ice when the other team scores, you get a minus. So right now, Adrian Kempe is leading the team in the plus category, 16. Kevin Fiala, 10 goals, 25 assists, 35 points. He leads the team in assists with 25. Trevor Moore, 18 goals, 11 assists, 29 points. He leads the team in goals with 18. Quinton Byfield, 10 goals, 18 assists, 28 points. Philip Denault, 8 goals, 15 assists, 23 points. Drew Doughty, 8 goals, 13 assists, 21 points. P.L. Dubois, our big offseason acquisition, 7 goals, 9 assists, 16 points. And so those are our offensive players. And good old P.L. Dubois also leads the team in negative. So he's at a -9. He has the worst plus negative rating on the team. Looking at the goalies here real quick. Cam Talbot having a terrific season. He was named to the All-Star team. So what the NHL does is they pick one All-Star from all 32 teams. He's our representative. And now they fill out the rest of the roster, I think, with fan voting. I think that's how it's working this year. So Cam Talbot's sitting at 14-9-5. with a 2.22 goals against and a save percentage at 922. Then you had Phoenix Copley before he got hurt, 4-1-2, 3.16 goals against and an 870 save percentage. He was getting better. He started off really rough this season, but he was getting better. And David Rittich has only been in 3 games so far, 2-0-1 with a 1.62 goals against and a 926 save percentage. 2 of those games were against the Sharks, and one against the overtime loss was against the Red Wings. So as a team right now, the Kings team rankings, goals for, they're ranked 20th with 125. Goals against, they're ranked first with 93. Goals for per game, they're 12th with 3.29. That was much higher. They were ranked much higher. They were top 5, top 3 maybe at one point. We're dropping fast. Goals against per game, second, 2.45. That's been pretty steady. Power play percentage, unfortunately, has been fairly steady. Ranked 18th in the league with a 19.8% power play. We were near the top last season. And that's what they say. With the absence of Victor Arvidsson, when he comes back, it should get better. We'll see. The penalty kill sitting at first. Now, this was our bugaboo last year. Just look at that Oilers Kings playoffs series last year. That I think the Oilers power play was like 50% against the Kings. It was really bad. So far this season, we're first at 87.1% penalty kill. Shots were third in the league for shots per game, 34 shots per game, and we are third for allowing shots per game, 27.4, third fewest. And looking at Cam Talbot, our all-star, he's sitting right now currently in 4th for the goals against average at 2.22 and 6th in save percentage. So the Kings, they got to turn it around. They got to turn that offense around. I think it all starts with the offense. Our defense is still playing fairly decent, and I still don't like the way they allowed crowding around the net, but that's the game today. It seems like that's just how the game is played. And but defensively, they're playing good. They're blocking shots, and they're intercepting passes. They're back checking very well. It's just they're turning the puck over to the neutral zone. That seems to be a reoccurring theme in a lot of these games where we get a lead and we turn the puck over in a neutral zone or a bad roll or a bad bounce somewhere with the puck, and all of a sudden there's a 2-on-1 advantage or a breakaway or something, and it just doesn't go our way. So you just got to keep plugging away. You got to score goals. We're not scoring them enough, and that's all you can say about it. We need somebody to step up, and we just don't have that. We have a lot of really good players. We just don't have that one great player. That one guy that stands out to teams that we got to watch this guy. We got to stop this guy, or there's going to be trouble. We don't have that one guy. I think that's part of the problem, in my opinion, anyway, offensively. So we'll see what happens this week coming up with 4 games, all tough, and we'll go from there. Hopefully they turn it around, get a couple of wins here. Maybe the Oilers will stumble a little bit, and the Kraken will stumble a little bit. And we can create that cushion again. And hopefully they don't fire Todd McClellan. I like Todd. He seems like a decent coach. One of his struggles when he coached Edmonton is he couldn't finish. His teams just could not finish. Either it was playoff series or games. They just they get leads and they just couldn't finish, and that's what got him fired at his last job. So it seems to be a reoccurring theme here. So all right. So before I get out of here, I'm going to go ahead and do our sponsor reads. And we'll start off with Jason Fine. J. Fine Law, Attorney Big Al. You can reach Big Al at 1-800-HURT-123. That's 1-800-HURT-123. Jason Fine specializes in motor vehicle accidents, slip and falls, workman's comp, and personal injury claims. They have 3 office locations conveniently located throughout Pennsylvania and New Jersey. First In Cherry Hill, New Jersey, the office is located at 3 Greensward Lane. 856-209-5258 is the phone number. Then in the Steel City of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the offices are located at 500 Grant Street, Suite 2900. The phone number there is 412-365-8151. Then in the city of Brotherly Love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the office is located at 1628 JFK Boulevard, Suite 2120. The phone number there is 267-888-2980. That's Jason Fine, attorney Big Al. Then head on over to monkeycoltcoffee.com. Get yourself some of that awesome coffee they got there. You got a really good selection right now. Bourbon chocolate chip infused coffee or toasted coconut rum. The Sumatra blend is part of their global gourmet collection. You can get that whole or ground bean, whole bean or ground coffee. One of their newer blends you can see there on the screen. The Perula, Florida organic blend, part of their global gourmet collection as well. You can get that whole bean or ground. I have not tried that yet. The one I did try is a newer one that is not on your screen is the aged honey agave. Very good. Or golden honey agave. Very good. Very good coffee. I recommend it. It still doesn't beat my favorite, the toasted coconut rum, but it is a very good coffee. And that's also part of I don't know if that's part of the Global Gourmet Collection or not. But anyway, I shouldn't say that if it's not. I'm not going to say it. The Golden Honey Agave, they're also selling honey at monkeycoltcoffee.com. So head on over to the swag shop, get yourself a t-shirt, coffee mug, tumbler, the cold brew pitcher, K-Cup adapter, and don't forget your Paradise Rum Cake. And like I said, get yourself some a little bottle of honey from monkeycoltcoffee.com. Pretty cool stuff there. And Out of the Box Sports, we have something for everybody. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, X, and the old TikTok. We're everywhere. Like, follow, subscribe. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and please follow us, especially on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. We appreciate it very much. And tell everybody, tell your friends, say, hey, we get check out this goofy guy talking about the LA Kings and Raiders. I also do Mets show Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Right now, because it's off season, I kind of try to go every other Wednesday. But there's been a few Wednesdays where I did it in a row in the off season because of bigger news. So that's where we're at. And I also do a wrestling podcast with Cowboy Dave called the Atomic Drop Podcast. So be sure to check that out. We should be live this Saturday, 11 p.m. All right. Let me come back on here and say my goodbyes. There I am. All right. I'm pretty much done here. My throat is sore from talking, and you're probably sick of hearing me sniffle anyway. So thank you for checking the show out. All I got to say is just win, baby, and go, Kings, go.